Hey everyone, welcome back to the Not Just a Pony Ride podcast. I'm your host today, Katie Ott, and I am an occupational therapist and a CTRI at Hetra here in Gretna, Nebraska. Today I have Miss Edie Godden here with me. She'll introduce herself in a second, but we are getting into a topic that came up in some office hours you were doing in a mini course. Let's get into a little bit about who you are. Introduce yourself again for folks who maybe are just joining us for the first time.
Awesome. Yeah. So my name is Edie Godden, and I am the CEO here at Hetra. I'm also an occupational therapist and a CTRI and a clinical specialist in hippotherapy. And I have been doing this for the past 35 years. I just celebrated 35 years. Yeah, big celebration and feel really blessed to have gotten to do what I'm so passionate about for such a big part of my career. So I feel very fortunate. But also because I've been doing this for 35 years, I have really seen this organization grow from where we were when we started with a couple of horses, a couple of volunteers, a couple of participants, everybody volunteering to where we are today. And every way in between that we've had it. Hopefully, we're going to talk a little bit today about funding the mission. So that was a question that came up in the office hours, as Katie mentioned, in the program sustainability course that we're currently doing. And we were talking about different ways to engage our families in fundraising and shooting some ideas of things that have worked successfully for us. So we're going to talk about some of those things in a little bit more detail.
Awesome. Yeah, and the sustainability course is something that we put together because we had a big ask for it. We had a big ask for a lot of people coming to us and wanting more information on things like how do we write really good grants? How do we fund our mission? How do we engage our board? How do we, build a sustainable team? I mean, all kinds of things that kind of go into leadership, not just executive directors or CEOs, but any kind of person who's involved in the sustainability of our centers. And so that's why we put together that mini course. You are kind of in the thick of it right now, starting to wind down a little bit with the live portion of that, but I just wanted to let everyone know as a reminder that that course lives on forever. So you can jump in with us at any time. I'll leave the link in the show notes below for this episode. But today we're going to talk about something that came up in those live office hours that we're doing within that course. And as Edie said, the funding portion of it. And there's a lot of creative ways that we can do that. And Hetra, like you said, you've been doing it 35 years. You've probably seen all kinds of things we've tried successfully, and maybe some we've tried and, weren't so successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we talk about in that course is really analyzing your fundraisers and determining which one of them are successful, which one of them take the least amount of resources but bring you the most return on your investment. A lot of programs do a big gala or something along. A lot of nonprofits do that, and that's great. And or a golf tournament, again, that's great if you're set up to do that. But taking that on as a new fundraiser or a new program, that's a big undertaking, and it's going to require a lot of man hours. And so, really, today, I think we want to talk more about those things that are going to be less man hours on your part and things that can really get your participants and your volunteers engaged in helping you fund the mission.
You think that people ever feel hesitant to engage participant families or volunteers? Like they're already doing so much for our organization. Can we really tap them for this or that? Do you think people ever feel that way?
I hope not. They might, but I feel like your volunteers and your family, obviously, they believe in what you and what you do and how you do it, and they have the personal stories to share about the impact they've seen. The volunteers obviously have to be somewhat cautious about that because we have HIPAA and other privacy things we have to be careful about, but they can talk in general about the progress that they've seen at the barn. And I know for us, our volunteers are some of our biggest supporters. And so Again, we always want to thank them for the time and the dedication they're giving to us from that standpoint, because we couldn't do it without them. But I don't think we should be afraid to engage them either. They don't have
Mhm.
to. It's not something they have to do. But a lot of them will want to do it, and they want to help in some way. And maybe that's just sharing the fundraiser on Facebook, or liking
Mhm.
it, or commenting on it.
Right. And we have two big campaign, well, we can talk a little bit about all of the kind of campaigns that we do, but two that come to my mind are the Drive to Ride, and then Hottie, which is Horse of the Year, our Horse of the Year race. And those are two that we really do rely on staff, participants, and their families, as well as volunteers, to help us kind of drive those campaigns for us.
Yes, and I think the Horse of the Year race, the Hottie race, is one that I tend to recommend to people if they're asking for a potential fundraising opportunity, what to do. I think it's one that is easy to get your participants and your volunteers engaged in. Your volunteers, love your horses. They want to see your horses well supported. Your participants love their horses. So I think it's something easy to get people engaged in. We do it as a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign, which means we set up a page for each horse that's in the race. As we have grown over the years, we don't have all of our horses in the race. We pick our top 10. We let our volunteers vote on that prior to the race. They decide who's going to be in the race, and then those top 10 we build teams around. Now, if you only have 5 horses in your herd, that's totally fine. All 5 of them can be included. If you have miniature horses in your group, that those horses could be included as well. So it really depends on how you want to set that up. But you're going to the one thing you're going to want to try to have is a a platform such as Fundraise. So we use Fundraise now, we've used Classy in the past, but it allows us to set up those individual pages. And so Team Coco can have his own page. We can talk about Coco and what he does in the program. We can say who's on Coco's team. They have their own direct link. It keeps a thermometer of where they're at from a fundraising perspective, so people can go in and check in there. So I really would recommend that. Other ways that people have done these before are things like Facebook fundraisers. We try to stay away from those because it's really hard to track, number one, who's donated. So you don't know who's donating. And number two, you're not going to get the funds for a period of time. And it could be a long period of time, it could be a short period of time. So I would really recommend finding a different way to set it up, other than through a Facebook fundraiser. So there's a lot of opportunities. We're not going to delve into the details there. I guess if people want more information on that, we're sure glad to share kind of how we do that in a little bit more detail down the road.
Yeah,
But
and I think
go ahead.
I just think that having those teams and like so being able to engage your volunteers to vote on, who should be in the race, and then letting them choose a team and all of that really creates a lot of buy-in. And it allows, like you said, those personal stories to really come out organically, because I chose Team Coco because I lead him every week on Tuesdays, and I see how much his participants love him, and I can really speak organically to how much I love Coco, and so that it doesn't feel forced, and it doesn't feel like, you're just asking for money for an organization. It's really something that you have strong personal ties to. And I think that goes to like our participants, right, if they're on the team for their horse that they ride every week, and it's just organic that way.
Yes, absolutely. And so the thing you want to do is you want to have each team have a captain, and that can be a staff member, that could be a key volunteer, it could be a parent or a family if they're willing to really step into that captain role. But you're going to then want them to build a team underneath of them. So they're going to want to recruit other volunteers, staff, families to be on their team as well. And then you're going to want to set an overall goal. So for the Horse of the Year race, we want to raise $10,000 this year. we are going to have 5 horses in the race. So each horse, we would like to raise $2,000. That kind of keeps the number and the budget piece of that pretty easy and pretty well put together. I think we changed the way we were doing the horse of the year race, but we had done it, I want to say, for about 10 years. And the first year that we did it, I want to say maybe we raised between 2,500 and $4,000. And the not last year, but the year before last, when we stopped doing it, we had brought that campaign up into about a $55,000 campaign. So
Incredible.
it's not something that you should set a $55,000 goal for this year unless you really know you have the support behind it. But I do think it's something that you can see grow pretty significantly over a pretty short period of time.
When we started it, we called it the penny race, didn't we?
Yes. And so that comes back to
Many moons ago.
yeah, many moons ago, Aaron was really tired of counting pennies, so asked us to stop that if we could. But what we did is we would have jars out of the barn that would have the horses' team on them. And so participants or volunteers could actually make their donation out of the barn as well. So
Mhm.
they could pennies in. As therapists, I know Katie and I both like to when we did that, because we would have coins and have our participants practicing their fine motor coordination to put their coins in their favorite horses jars. So that's another way to build on that horse of the year race.
Lots of ways to do it for sure.
Yeah.
What for something like Hottie, where you're it's the horse of the year, do all of those funds then go directly to the horse sponsorship side of things? Or, I mean, obviously as an organization, you have flexibility to decide where those funds go. You just need to be transparent about that, right? But for us, Hottie traditionally went towards horse care, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think transparency about where the funds are going to go is going to be very important. And don't get into a ton of detail. You can say they're going to support our our horse herd. And
Hmm.
that can be anything from shavings and hay to vet care to the staff that are helping to take care of them to and condition them. So it can go in a lot of different ways.
Hmm.
And I guess for us, I didn't ever fear that we were going to raise so much money that our we would have too much money in our horse account. That has never seemed to be a problem, and I don't think it's a problem for most programs, probably because our horses tend to be a little bit tricky for us some days. And with an
Yeah.
older herd, we know that they can be more expensive, and so that gets more difficult.
Do you think that centers sometimes get hung up with how to fund the horse side of things? Because it's not really something you go out into the community, to the CEO of a bank and say, "Hey, I need to pay for hay for my horses," and and that guy's just like, "Sure, here's the money." Do you feel like horses are generally a trickier thing to get funding for?
I think when you're talking that direction, when you're looking at more at business or corporate sponsors or even foundation sponsorships, that may be more difficult ask.
Hmm.
They want to support the people, the programming. Our horses are not typically rescue horses. So the horses that are in our program, sometimes they're purchased and they come into our program. So there's not like a story you can build upon, the story you can build upon that is a lot of times they're on their second or third career, sometimes a fourth career. And so these horses are continuing to be a very valuable member of the community. And oftentimes these horses have been show horses or, trail horses, working horses where they've been in a regular situation. And it's hard for them just to go out to pasture then. It's just like us, we've been working and then all of a sudden we retire. That's really hard on people. And so for our horses to kind of be able to step down, not that the work that we do is easy by any means, but it's not going to be as heavy duty as eventing or, working cow horse or something like that. So yeah, I think to answer your original question, I do think sometimes that ask is a little bit more difficult. And I think when you're doing those asks, and we're going to talk a little bit more about horse sponsorships, I know you want to tie that back to the participants and the participant stories and what those horses mean to the participants, because obviously the horses are the heart of everything we do.
Right. And that's why, not to get off track, or anything, we never do that on the podcast, but that's why we built some of this funding stuff into the Hetra University Live that we're getting ready to do here this March. Is we had done this, the whole workshop was about equine welfare and all these things that we can do to help improve our equine welfare. And it wasn't necessarily that people didn't want to deploy those strategies or make some changes, but it was like, okay, how do I fund this? How do I fund the extra conditioning time? How do I fund supplements or joint injections or, whatever that stuff might be? And so that's why we added this funding piece to the Hetra University Live coming up, that is focused on equine welfare still, but to kind of give people some peace of mind and some tips and tricks for how to fund some of that stuff. So I just wanted to just touch on that and about how important that is as a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we talk about equine welfare and looking at programs like ours, we know that the horse cost is our second highest cost, right? And I would assume that's either the first or second highest cost for most programs would be that horse side of things. And, you know, a lot of times programs are limited and may not be able to do some of the maintenance things that they would like to be able to do for a horse because of funding issues. And, if we can maintain those horses and do some of those maintenance things, those horses stay in our program for a much longer time. I know Shelby has a number she uses, and I don't know what that is right off the top of my head, but what the actual cost it is to bring a new horse in versus maintaining one of our other horses in our herd. So I think that's something there's something to be said for that. But I do think making sure that we can figure out how to fund this piece is critical to our mission, is critical to what we do. And I do think it can be a really easy sell for our participants and our volunteers. I wanted to mention a couple of things for the Horse of the Year race. There are a couple of fun things that we've done in combination with that in the past. And these are kind of quick and simple things because sometimes people don't like to ask for money per se. So even sharing the Facebook story, they might not want to ask somebody for a $5 donation or something along that line. But something that we have done is we've done a pie in the face contest. Katie and I can both attest to how fun that is. All of our staff who want to participate in it or are volunteered to participate in it do. Katie, you want to comment on that a little bit?
No comment. No. We'll have to share if you're a follower of us on Instagram or Facebook, maybe we'll have to share some photos of previous pie in the face fun that we've had.
Yeah. Yeah, but the amazing thing from that is we raise, I think like $2,500 from that pie in the face contest. We do it our volunteer barbecue in the summer, and so the volunteers get to pie us at the volunteer barbecue, which is always the last thing we do, but always a ton of fun. They enjoy it. The staff enjoys it. There's always a lot of wrangling at the end, like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to be pied, and then somebody gets a $500 donation at
Right.
the end.
The money just starts coming out of the woodwork in the last about hour before people get pied. It's pretty entertaining.
Yeah, so that's one thing that we do that's fun. If your staff, key volunteers, are willing to undergo that, it's a fun thing to do. The other thing we've done is contests. So maybe we have done a contest for, I think we did one around St. Patrick's Day, and we had gold pieces of gold that were going to go into the pot, and whichever horse had the most pieces of gold got an extra $500 coins, and each coin was $5 to purchase. So there's contests you can do, and then the other thing is matching, and the matching dollars do help drive donations. And I think sometimes that's intimidating for people because they're like, I don't know who to go out and ask for a match. But you may already have donors. If you have a donor that already gives you $1,000 every year in April, and you're going to run your Horse of the Year campaign or your horse fundraising campaign in April, then talk to that donor and say, can we use your $1,000 as a matching for the Horse of the Year? I would almost guarantee 100% of the donors are going to say yes. They'd rather see their donation double. And you'll see that drives those donations to come in during that matching day or whatever time that you have those matching funds. Last year in our Drive to Ride, we were fortunate to have a couple days where every donation that came in was matched by a donor. And that really drove the number of donations that were coming in.
Definitely. And that I think that's something that came up in your office hours too, I believe. Someone was asking about that matching funding piece of things and isn't really something that I think you think of right away when it comes to campaigns and things, but something that you're absolutely right. I know that when I share things on Facebook or things when it's matching day, it's so much those donations come in so much quicker and easier because people think, oh, my $20 is doubled to $40. Why wouldn't I do that? And that can really, really drive traction for you.
Exactly. So don't be afraid to utilize some of the current donations that you're already getting in as those matching dollars. And ask, obviously ask the funder if they want to. It's a great way if you had a business that you were going to. So maybe you have a local gas station that wants to support you, and you can say, hey, this match is sponsored by so and so gas station, and they get that social media push as well, and
Right.
that they're supporting you. So that gives them some more bang for their buck too.
What if equine welfare wasn't just something you believed in, but the foundation of every decision you make? Join us March 6th and 7th at Hetra University Live, a 2-day workshop designed to give EAS professionals practical, real world tools to advocate for their horses. From rider balance and weight limits to horse capacity, funding, and team decision making, you'll leave with strategies you can apply immediately, no matter the size of your program. Because real change doesn't happen alone, we're offering buy one, get one 50% off registrations for a limited time. Earn up to 10 CEUs and join us in person or online. Register now at hetrauniversity.org or click the link in our show notes below. So, kind of along the lines of like sponsorship and getting bang for your buck and that sort of thing, do you want to talk about like horse sponsorship or program sponsorships where they kind of extend that money all year long?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've seen a lot of conversations happening about how do people run their horse sponsorship programs? What does that look like? What is a horse sponsorship for a year? And we know with our herd, because we do the strategic plan on our horses, we know how much money each horse costs us. Now, we can't say that we're going to go out and raise $6,000 for this horse and $3,000 for this horse, because that makes it really hard on the team that's doing that fundraising piece of things. So we have an average of about $4,500 that we raise to sponsor a horse for a year. People can also sponsor a horse for half of that. So they can do half of that, or they can even do a third of that. And they're still going to get their recognition on the horse's stall sign out in the barn. And we can share a picture of that stall sign too, probably in our show notes, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, what that looks like. And then we also have what we call program sponsorship. So if we have somebody that would want to do a $7,500 sponsorship or a $10,000 sponsorship, they can put that directly towards a specific program. So if life skills is really near and dear to their heart, and that's the program that they want to sponsor, then they become a $7,500 life skills sponsorship. And we have detailed out what comes along with that sponsorship. How are they recognized? What are the things that we are going to give them in return for that sponsorship? And I think we have that form as well, Katie.
Yes, the program and horse sponsorship opportunities uh flyer, if you will, has all of the levels that we have with a description of what those levels are and how much those sponsorship levels are. And we are going to share that with our Patreon community. So if you are a member of our educational club over at Patreon, it's a low subscription dollar amount where we share all kinds of free resources and webinars and education and all kinds of things. And so that community is going to get this flyer for free. I'll put that link in the show notes if anyone's interested in looking at that in more detail.
Awesome. And we try to communicate then with our horse sponsors a couple times a year about their horse. So we might give them a fun update and say, oh, hey, Honey is doing this, and that's really cool. Or Honey just moved into this program that she hadn't been working in before. Or this is the number of riders she's seen in the last 4 months. So this is a number of rider or lives that she's impacted. So we try to touch base with them a couple times during the year. And then when it gets closer to renewal, so if they did their sponsorship in April, we are looking to maybe reach out to them maybe the beginning of March to ask them if they would like to sponsor again. And they always get first, right to sponsor that horse again for the following year. And I would say we have a pretty good return on people who sponsor coming back on a year-to-year basis, which is great.
For sure. I think again, that personal connection, it's kind of organic when we have either families or volunteers or things that want to sponsor specific courses for specific reasons. But then we also have things that kind of make sense, like maybe your veterinarian wants to sponsor a horse, or things like that, where you have businesses or other organizations that make sense from a horse standpoint, or just want the recognition or the benefits that are kind of year round, like having that sign on the stall, all year. Or if you're sponsoring, not a horse, but maybe you're a program sponsor and there's like for example, our highest amount they get an arena sign with their business logo and social media acknowledgement. So there's kind of different things at each level that can benefit them all year round and might be better than just a singular donation for one thing or another.
And one of the things that you want to think about as you talk about those in your barn recognitions is how many people come through your barn in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year. And it's a lot. For us, it's a lot. We do 2 volunteer tours / public tours and 1 participant tour a month. We do a lot of different donor community tours. We host networking groups that are as well as just the volunteers and the participants that come through her. So if you know that number, that can be pretty impressive to somebody who is really wanting to get their name out there. And so make sure you do a little bit of investigation and think about that.
For sure. Well, I guess as we kind of wind down a little bit, we have talked a lot about ways to fund our mission that aren't so staff intensive, which I think is really important for centers of all sizes. So, small centers, large centers, if we can make an impact to our financial bottom line with, minimal inputs, I think that's always the idea, the big idea, right?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if you can speak, Edie, a little bit from kind of how we've grown from what you have seen in Hetra from when we first started to now, and how has the, I guess, importance shifted of having more fundraising and sponsorship opportunities like this now as we've grown versus when we were maybe a smaller center.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think as a smaller center, we wanted to put a lot of our efforts into events. So, we wanted to do the gala, we wanted to do a run or a walk, we wanted to do a garage sale, we wanted to do a bake sale, we wanted to do a lot of event type of things because that's what we knew at that point in time. That's what we knew. That's what we knew how to do. As we've backed down, we used to do a horse show as well. And as we've looked at those activities, we've really taken a hard critical look and said, now, does this make sense from a staff standpoint? So if I put the number of staff hours or volunteer hours that it takes in to put this event on, and this event only makes $2,500, that probably is not enough of a return on investment. In fact, it might be costing us more to put the event on than the actual event brings us. And so those are things you have to take a really critical eye at. Now, if you have the capacity to grow that, we are celebrating 25 years of our gala of our Blue Jeans and Dreams event this year. And so we've been reminiscing a little bit about where we started and back in the day. It was called the Musical Benefit. That was our very first one 25 years ago, and we had a tornado. And we raised like $2,500, and that to where we're at today, where we raise, pretty close to $400,000. It's a big, big difference, but that didn't happen overnight. That took 25 years of growth and really intentional work. And it runs like a pretty well-oiled machine at this point in time, but I wouldn't want to do, well, we did do that twice in one year, and I wouldn't want to do it again. Thanks
We're
again to
not
another
talking about
tornado.
that.
No, no, we're gonna knock on wood somewhere. But I wouldn't want to do another event that heavy again, because it takes so much out of our staff, from our facility. We shut down programming for a week, which is okay because we give our courses a week off anyway, and we would give them a week off anyway. But it just really critical things that you need to think about as you develop these things. And as you look at something like the Horse of the Year race, or you look at horse sponsorships, that's really more about building relationships with people. And those relationships are what are going to fund your mission in the long run. So that donor that gave you $100 to support Coco, you might be surprised in the next year when they give you $1,000, and the next year when they give you $5,000, and the next year when you have an emergency vet bill and they write you a check for $10,000. Like, what in the heck, But building those relationships is really what is key, and that in these individual campaigns you have more capability to do that.
I love that. I think that's like the perfect way, like the perfect note to end on for our podcast, because the sustainability of that is so much richer than, the ticket you sold to your gala, or, an auction item someone bought. I think it's building those relationships is much more sustainable for our organizations, and really, really important to think about.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I'm going to leave a few resources for you guys in the show notes. If you're interested in more about funding equine welfare, and how to get more creative with your horse sponsorship, the Hetra University Live link will be there for you. You can join us virtually or in person here in Gretna. I'll also leave the information for Edie's sustainability course. So if you are just hungry for more information about how to fund your mission as a whole, how to keep your organization sustainable in lots of different ways, I will leave that information there. And then, of course, the Patreon link to grab our flyer on our program and horse sponsorship opportunities. All right. Well, thank you, Edie, for chiseling some time out of your busy day for us today on the podcast. And we'll see you again real soon.
Thank you.
That's all for today. But until the next episode launches, scroll down to the show notes and click on the link to get plugged in with us on Facebook, Instagram, or our exclusive educational club at Patreon. This podcast is presented by Hetra University, the educational arm of Heartland Equine Therapeutic Riding Academy in Gretna, Nebraska. Hetra University's mission is to provide high-quality educational offerings to the EAS community. Check out all the Hetra University has to offer at www.hetrauniversity.org.